Good evening. New Zealand actor Russell Crowe enjoys huge international success. He's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, we know this. He also experiences damaging controversy. Now, I've interviewed Russell Crowe several times over the years, and normally it's in a very pressured kind of a situation when he's promoting a movie. And once, as a matter of fact, we spent hours waiting to speak to Russell in Sydney. This was after the incident at the British BAFTA Awards. So, well, you never quite know what you're getting. You see, Russell was a very tense person that day, and we missed our flight home, but never mind that. This time, a marriage and a baby later, when we met Russell, it was, "Paul, nice to see you. Take all the time in the world, and I'll speak to you about anything you want, because I know you're going to ask me anyway." I said, "Oh, that's very nice, Russell. We might even get your cousin Martin Crowe along as well for a bit of a chat." So here is my conversation with Russell Crowe. Well, you look very relaxed.
I am very relaxed.
Last time I seen you, you were not very relaxed.
When was that?
Oh, God, years ago.
Right.
But you might have been exhausted.
Well, that's a funny thing, because you normally only are in this press situation like this when you are at your most exhausted. You know, you're usually doing, you know, country after country and, you know, 2 or 3 days at a time and talking all day about the same subject matter, which would drive any rational person insane. But it's nice to have a conversation without that sort of schedule around.
Without 100 of them lining up outside to come in and speak to you. Tell me about your farm. I want to know about your farm. I mean, how big is it? You got cattle?
Yeah, we run Black Angus. It's non-certified organic. This is the second time we've done the run up to sort of being organic. We hired a bloke who made a bit of a mistake with some chemicals at one point after we'd been doing it for 3 years, so we had to start again. So that was unfortunate. Yeah, we run Black Angus, and our aim is to provide steak as the cleanest food source possible. You know, that's, you know, and with a very low fat level and very high protein level. That's what we're looking at.
You've also got trees, haven't you? You're growing, is it eucalypt?
Yeah, eucalyptus. Yeah, all different types.
Is your farm one block, or is it over several blocks?
There's one big main block which covers a lot of cattle land and where all the buildings are, because my brother also lives there as well. And then there's 2 other blocks in that same valley, which one we use for growing feed, and another what you use for like finishing the cattle.
Martin's most impressed with your cricket ground, with the cricket pitch. What do you call it? Your oval?
Well, it's not an oval. It's no, there's no mathematical relationship to an oval. That we just took the flattest area that we could find. That was on a large scale, and we sort of made that shape. It's kind of like a trapezoid thing with a couple of corners and an extra angle to it and a bit of a round bit. It's not an oval.
Got a little pavilion?
Pavilion's there, yes. It's called the D.W. Crowe Field, actually. It's named after Martin's father, David William Crowe.
With whom you were very close?
Yes.
Yeah. The chapel, of course?
Yes.
Why are you laughing about that?
Oh, I'm not laughing. It's a beautiful building, and it's a lovely building to be inside. And
it's a wonderful thing to have.
My brother got married there first. There was a little wooden chapel there. But when I was getting ready to marry Danielle, I mean, she wanted at one point, or she thought at one point that she might like to get married in Italy, you know. So we looked into that and realised that there was a lot of, you know, bureaucracy to go through and red tape and everything, so it didn't really feel suitable. So the whole thing with the chapel was building the Byzantine dome of her imagination, but at the farm. But so we can visit it all the time. I don't have to get on an aeroplane to go, you know, overseas to go and see it.
Well, you walk into it.
It is a beautiful building. But my brother, there was a chapel there, a little wooden one at first, and my brother got married in that, and we added the dome to the front of the wooden chapel, and that's now had our wedding and also Charlie's christening.
So the farmers, not just a place where we do the Angus beef. The farmers, very much a family community.
Yes, it's where we all live. I mean, we all have different houses and stuff, but it's all in the same block, you know.
It's nice.
It's great, man. It's great, and it's the way that look. I do a lot of travelling, and it's just a great benefit to me, you know, to be able to go to one place and hang out with my dad and my mum and my brother, you know. And he's just recently had a daughter, and he's got another one on the way. And of course we have Charlie, and Danielle's pregnant. She's due in July. So you know, the village is growing.
Enough room?
Oh, there's plenty of space. Yeah.
Very nice. Are the neighbours a bit noisy?
It must be a bowling alley.
you think could be? You got a bowling alley on your farm?
No, I don't, mate, sorry.
No. What other sport?
That's Mel Gibson, mate. He wants a bowling alley in Fiji, doesn't he?
Oh, that's exactly right.
I've actually played bowls in Fiji. There's an island that's got a resort that guy Anthony Robbins, the motivational dude, I forget its name, but he runs it, and it's the place where they go firewalking and all that sort of stuff. And I was just looking for a place to stay, and they weren't having any of their conventions, so I went and stayed there for a few days. And there's a bowling alley there, in case you're ever wanting to bowl next time you're in Fiji.
Thank you. That's very good to know. What was the best song ever written?
I believe the best pop song ever written is Alison by Elvis Costello. Because I think all pop songs are essentially love songs, you know, in one way or another. And Alison just gets to the real nitty-gritty of how painful and acerbic, you know, love can sometimes be, but it still has a connectivity to that love, so that love's not lost. You know, it's a great song.
And tight?
Concise, yes. He gets his point across very concisely.
Written on a dime.
And that's the point with a 3-minute pop song. That's the art, getting gigantic ideas condensed in 3 minutes and having a bridge.
I thought you might say, yeah. What's
Bring
a bridge?
in the bridge guy.
Yeah. What is a bridge?
Oh,
Can someone explain what a bridge?
There's many forms
right.
of the answer to that.
I thought when I asked you about favourite pop, you know, best song of all time, you might say something like a Cole Porter song or something like Miss Otis Regrets.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Dock of the Bay.
Yeah, well, there's something, but also you can go back further than that. I mean, the Stately Homes of England, Noel Coward, what a wonderful pop song. You know, what a socially aware song for the time. And, you know, I think, man, you know, the great thing about songs is every day there's new ones written.
I suppose one of the reasons you're so particular about the spoken word is your experience in film too, because film requires very concise dialogue to be written, doesn't it? I know you're very particular about that. You told me that years ago with Gladiator, that you'd done a lot of contributing to the dialogue.
Well, it depends on the type of situation you're working in. I mean, sometimes you can be working on a script that is complete and absolute, and you knew that when you signed on for it, and that's the thing that you're doing. But other times you're, you know, working with a director who's saying to you, look, I've got, you know, X percentage of a great idea, and let's do this together and see how we go. And that's certainly my relationship with Ridley. We just worked together in Provence last year in a movie called A Good Year. And whereas we started Gladiator with a firm 21 pages of script out of it, probably given 110 that you need, we started this one with 48 pages of solid script out of a given 110 that you might need. And to Ridley, that's great progress. And so next time we're hoping to start with at least 60 pages.
Yeah. So do you just sit around at dinner, you know, like after dinner, and do it all?
That's what we do.
You don't do it on the set at Liverpool?
Sometimes. I mean, some of the main lines in terms of what people remember from Gladiator are things that we just talked about on the day, and that's what we did, you know.
Does it happen quite a bit in movies that, you know, dialogue just comes out at the moment? And
when you're working for 6 months and you're playing that given character for 6 months, you tend to get so deeply inside it, not in terms of like you're living your life of it, but between action and cut, you're able to access that character very, very easily. So, and this would be true of an actor like, say, Paul Giamatti and his performance in Cinderella Man as well. When you are that deeply inside what you're doing and you have access to all the character structure that you've built, ad-libbing and pretending to be that character, you know, off script is very easy to do. And sometimes you just do it naturally because you'll be in the middle of a scene and it occurs to the protagonists in the scene that there is other unexplored material that hasn't, you know, hasn't been looked at. So you just flow into that. I mean, you know, it comes out many ways, but you know, it's an art form. It's not an exact science. You know?
You mentioned Cinderella Man. I loved Cinderella Man. Were you disappointed with the attention it got, Cinderella Man, a bit?
I think its critical attention was massive. You know, I think it was just platformed at the wrong time for it. You know, and that, unfortunately, you know, because people are so focused on American box office, that does affect everybody everywhere else. You know, which is why they'll take movies that you know, are maybe not going to get great critical response, and I'll open them around the world on exactly the same day, so nobody has a chance to read that critical response. But Cinderella Man is a movie that I'll be talking to people about for the rest of my life. I'm sure of that. It's a beautifully crafted film. It's Ron Howard's best work to date. Paul Giamatti is just electric and, you know, magnificent in the film, and that goes across the whole cast. So it's one of those movies, say like a Shawshank Redemption, that when it came out, it got scant attention, but over time it's now the movie that people, you know, vote for over Citizen Kane for the best movie that they've seen.
Tell us about Renee too, Renee Zellweger. I mean, I can't believe, you know, that the same person who was Bridget Jones, you know, was your wife in the boxing film.
She's a great actress, man. You know, bottom line, we met in a cafe in San Diego in 1998. I just finished The Insider. I was like 254 pounds. I'm about 190 pounds at the moment. So, and I was bald because I'd shaved my hair to wear the wig in The Insider. And I'm walking down the street, and I've actually been to one of those, you know, the fat farms, you know, whatever they call them, you know, and I've been there for about 10 days, and it's been really boring. And but I wanted to do something, you know, immediate as soon as I finished the film to click myself back over into prepping for the next role, which is Gladiator. And so I'm walking down the street of San Diego, and I see Renee sitting with a friend, a girl who used to work for Cameron Crowe, the film director. And so I go over and I introduce myself, and I sit down, and I'd, you know, just the previous year been sent this script of Cinderella Man. This is 1998. And so I'm 254 pounds and bald. And I'm explaining to Renee Zellweger how I'm going to make this movie and be this boxer, you know, and she should play the wife. And bless her cotton socks, she, you know, took the whole thing sort of seriously, listened to the tale and everything, and said, well, that sounds like something that I'd be really interested in doing, you know. And in the 7 years it took to get that movie to the point of production, she never said anything other than yes. So the production moved forward, and we finally got around to getting the money that we needed and the time we needed to make that film. But you know, her work speaks for itself. She's great.
You should have got the Oscar for Beautiful Mind as well. You know that.
Look, here we go, Paul. Here's the thing, right? In my life, no matter what crap I foist on the general public, I will always be Academy Award winner Russell Crowe. I don't have the accumulation gene that some people expect me to have for those sorts of things. You know, there are other things in life that I would pursue far more readily and with greater fervour than ever bothering to necessarily have to have a second one. You know, I mean, it's almost like, you know, whatever is the luckiest thing in the world that happens for you to actually, you know, get the award, that's what happens. You know, it's that much of a lottery at a certain point, you know. So the fact that it's happened once is, you know, that's magnificent, you know. It does give me, I believe, a certain responsibility to keep my end up, you know, in terms of quality. So I don't think I'll ever get into that point of just foisting, you know,
Still, you deserved it.
Well, thanks very much.
I just wanted to tell you.
Cool.
You know, should have got it. And of course, you mentioned Ron Howard before too. Ron Howard's always remained very loyal to you. Yes.
We're good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're friends from the trenches. You know, same with me and Ridley. You know, we became friends because we were in the middle of doing something very difficult, and we achieved it together. Regardless of what other people might have perceived our relationships to be, our relationship was always focused completely on the work that we were doing. And, you know, I mean, that's why we work together again, because it's fun.
He was very nice at the Oscars that night, Ron Howard, when he said that none of us would be standing up here were it not for Russell Crowe. I thought that was very touching. I liked that. Did you like that?
Yes. And I remember the night very well, and I remember spending a great, 15 minutes talking to Ron's dad, Rance Howard, who, is the original Howard actor that brought all the family members to Los Angeles and, put Ron in the position of being a child star like he was, and his brother as well. And having a really deeply satisfying conversation with a father who understood that Tonight had achieved a level of ambition for his son that only he understood. He had the talent to do, apart from Ron himself, way back when he was Richie Cunningham, or way back when he was Opie making, 8mm documentaries for his classmates. And Ron had reached that thing, and I got to have that conversation with Ron's dad, so that was a lovely night.
Let's talk about your record.
Goody.
Let's talk about your songs. Can I go through some of the songs?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you write a song? Do you wake up in the middle of the night and think, God, that's an idea?
Sometimes.
Yeah? Do you write it down straight away?
Sometimes, I heard once years ago that, you could spend all that time writing things down, but if anything you think of is actually really good, it'll come back to you. And that's odd actually, because that song, Mr. Harris, which is the choral requiem for a dead friend, the actor Richard Harris, I wrote that on a beer coaster after a rugby game at Lansdowne Road in Dublin. And I'd totally forgotten about it, but I'd described it to my wife at one point and sang it to her over the phone. And later on, years later, when I'm making the record, she said to me, "Are you going to do that funny song you wrote about Richard?"
It is a funny thing.
And it just came back to me. Yeah.
Did you wrote the music for that as well?
The melody was inherent in writing it, yeah.
I mean, it is, yes. I mean, it's like a complete traditional Irish air, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'd been at... I'll tell you the story. See, Richard and I, we met, obviously, probably to most people, on the set of Gladiator. He dressed in the finery of, an emperor of the empire, and myself as a Roman general. And we talked about rugby, as you do. And one of the things he said to me when he first met me was, "Crow, they tell me that you are born in New Zealand, but that you choose to live in Australia. Is that correct?" I said, "Yes, I'm born in New Zealand, live in Australia." That's correct, yes. "Right. So, I can yell abuse at you about the Wallabies, but I can talk in hushed and respectful tones with you about the All Blacks. You are a good night out and one man. I think I'm going to like you, Crow." And that was the beginning of our friendship. And when Richard was dying, we were shooting Master and Commander, and he was in the hospital. And look, he'd been in the hospital a number of times since I knew him, and he'd always come out, so we were making plans. And the plan that we were making is that we were going to attend the Wallabies versus Ireland at Lansdowne Road a month hence, But unfortunately he died, and I went over to London for the funeral. And I'd never been to Ireland. I'd never been, and I'd always planned to go to Ireland with Richard, and now Richard is dead, and I'm standing there in the church at the funeral, and I'm thinking, I'm going to go to Ireland. And I should have probably just got on a plane and come home, but I went on this sort of one-man pilgrimage, and I went to all the places in Ireland that he'd talked to me about specifically, I went to Limerick, I had a beer, a Guinness, at the Charlie St George's pub, which he'd always talked about in such glowing terms, and in my imagination it was completely different from what it was. I went to the Cliffs of Moher, I went to Galway, I went to a couple of different castles that he'd talked about having family holidays. And I found myself in Dublin on the day of the game. So I went, and...
Well, on your own?
Well, actually, no, with two other blokes.
I was going to say, you didn't go
sort of an Irish guy.
Didn't go Nigel No Mates, did you, to the...
No, I was actually standing behind the Irish president. There were flash seats, don't worry. So, I went to the game, and it was, mist was falling down and everything, but that was the Wallabies of 2002, and the expectation that they would just simply crush Ireland, what it's like to play the home nations, bit of a tussle, 20 minutes up front, cricket score, But that day it just wasn't. And George Gregan dropped the ball at the base of the scrum umpteen times. Matthew Burke had blokes out on his right and he passed it back inside the left. It was just everything that they could happen for them to not gain ascendancy happened. And for the first time in 37 years, Ireland beat Australia at Lansdowne Road. But it was about halfway through the game that I sort of began to see it from a different perspective, and all these things and mistakes and everything that were happening. I realised that my friend Richard Harris hadn't actually shuffled off this mortal coil. He hadn't gone to meet his maker. He'd decided to stick around for one more rugby game, and he was doing his absolute best on that field, his ghostly presence, to make sure of an Irish victory, and he made sure of it. And that's where the song sources from.
What was the basis of that friendship? Was it simply humour? Was it soulmates? What was it?
It was humour. It was, I think Richard just liked having a straight conversation. Richard liked to sit down and talk. And I think if he wanted to express himself in a certain way about a certain subject matter, he didn't like it if people were sort of like, oh, come on, calm down or whatever. And I never would approach that. If he was like very passionate about something, then I would engage him on that level, you know. If he was melancholy about something, then I could empathise with him and you know, understand it. But I think I reminded him of, you know, a different time of his life. And I never approached him as an old man. I approached him as a bloke. And I think he appreciated that as well.
Do the lyrics of the song.
I remember where our friendship started from. It started from doing an extremely emotionally complex scene in a movie, right? So once you've done that kind of dance with somebody, you know, after that, it's really just filling in, you know, the peripheral details because you already know each other.
That real. Then we get to the song Weight of a Man.
Weight of a Man.
This is about Danielle. This is about you and Danielle. This is about...
But it's about my wife, but it's about all wives. In fact, it's about any young woman contemplating becoming a wife.
Particularly...
As much a tribute as it could be a warning.
Yeah. Particularly someone contemplating a marriage to Russell Crowe.
Yeah, well, I'm sure my life comes with, you know, lots of things that are
well,
very
the lyrics
difficult.
say it. I'm so hard to handle. My life's a suitcase that's never been closed. There's black eyes and stitches. They come with me. They're part of the show.
Yes. Well, not all those things are literal.
No. But you can find a link for all of them, probably.
Well, I said it's a very personal record.
Yeah, and it's honest, Russell.
But I think all the same, that the weight of a man is felt by any wife.
What does that mean? My life's a suitcase that's never been closed. I love that line. What are you saying there?
Well, do you really want me to explain that, or do you want to just wonder about it for another year or two before you come up with the idea yourself? The thing is,
No, I figure you're on a journey.
And the journey doesn't end.
Yeah. But I wanted you to tell me.
Right.
It's okay. And then, of course, then you say, don't close your eyes, turn your face to the sky, and breathe me as deep as you can. Your strong heart won't break. Are you ready to take the weight of a man? You're the lyricist, though, aren't you, mainly?
That's right.
But there are some songs by other people. Some songs about other people.
No,
Isn't
I'm
it
talking about biographical in terms of writing about other people. In terms of like a song about Richard Harris or a song about a friend or whatever.
But in terms of the songs on the album, you've done most of the lyrics.
Yes.
And your friend Doyle.
Alan Doyle.
Alan Doyle from Canada.
Canadian band, Great Big Sea. Yes.
Yeah. How long did it take to put the songs together?
The songs were written over probably about an 8 to 9 month period from the time that I met Alan to the time we were recording, but the album itself took 6 weeks.
And what was it about meeting him that got the songs going?
Well, he's a very unique fellow. You know, he has a wonderful perspective on life. He has a degree in religious studies, which I always find kind of, you know, amusing, and it also does come out in a conversation in terms of, you know, the point of a song as well. But Alan himself is a musicologist to a certain degree. His band's songs, you know, rediscover the roots of folk music from Newfoundland, but also from Ireland and its original sources. But I heard a song that he had written in 1998. It's called "How Do We Get From Saying I Love You Till I See You Around Someday?" And it seemed to me that every English-speaking person in the world should have that song as common ground, because it was such a beautifully observed thing of life, where, you know, that transition from being, you know, from teenage romances or whatever to your first adult relationship that then falters, and the difference that happens in the, you know, the love that once existed between you and your girlfriend, or you and your boyfriend, or whatever. And I just thought it was a beautifully observed song. So it took 6 years or more for me to actually meet him and get around to telling him that. But in that period of time, he'd heard some songs of mine and stuff. So when we sat down, we did have music as common ground. And he's a very open fellow, he's a very knowledgeable fellow, and he's absolutely a born storyteller. So he's a wonderful fellow to be around.
He says you're brilliant with words, though. He says in all his years he's never met anyone who's so particular about the spoken word.
Well, Alan allows me to be that way. You know, some other people that you write with are not necessarily as patient in terms of discovering the truth of the story. But, you know, Alan and I really like to kick an idea around, and it's, you know, it's nice of him to say that, but it also reflects how he is as a person as well.
Have you been something of a student of song lyrics over the years, though? 'Cause, you know, you've always had your music and...
Yeah, well, for me, that's how a song attracts me, you know, in the first place. It's not, you know, other people, you know, like the beat or whatever. You know, for me, it'll be something that the singer has said.
Welcome back. We're speaking to Russell Crowe, and he has been joined during the commercial break by his cousin Martin.
Magically, out of nowhere.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, just like that. And Marty brought his own chair, folks, and it's unbelievably exactly the same as my chair. So it's
I forgot my North Bergen top.
Yeah, oh, you got one of
by
these, haven't
James J. Braddock,
yes.
Cinderella Man top.
Yes.
Oh, that's flash. But that's a very flash top you're wearing too yourself. It's a very nice...
Thanks.
it's a very nice shirt.
I could have worn the Ordinary Fear of God T-shirt,
Which Paul will be wearing from now on because
black. It'll suit you.
It's a fashion statement.
Yeah. I love black T-shirts.
Yeah.
And it's very colourful, your Ordinary Fear of God T-shirt.
Well, the back is, yes, the stained glass window motif.
Exactly so.
You know where that's from? That's from the chapel on the farm.
Ah.
You see.
Oh, we were talking about that earlier, and there's lovely stained glass as well as a dome.
Yes, the stained glass. Stained glass came out of the St Mary's in North Ryde when it burnt down.
You got a nice farm?
Amazing. I saw it last month. We caught up, talked about the Rabbitohs, and he flew us up to Coffs and to Nana Glen, and mainly because I wanted to see the Dave Crowe Oval. Russell's built a cricket ground, and it's astonishing, and it's in the memory of Dad, my dad. And
It's built with Martin in mind. It has very long straight boundaries and very short square boundaries. Yes, it's a batsman's wicket.
I got told when Jeff went over for the wedding, which I couldn't be at because Emma was being born at the same time, that when he came back he said, well, there's the Dave Crowe Oval, there's the Jeff Crowe Pavilion, and there's the Martin Crowe toilets.
No.
That's the story I got told, so that's what I believed. That's what I believed until I actually flew in there and I saw this place and I thought, wow, this is special. So that'll be my last game. I think my last knock will be there someday soon.
I still remember the 299
Thanks, mate. Yeah.
against Sri Lanka.
So does he.
Man, that must have you.
I go 30 minutes now without thinking about it. It's pretty good.
It's great. That's,
Yes, you could have
that's
it.
better than 10 years ago.
Why did you have to bring that up?
Because I always wanted to tell you just how magnificent it was, and my heart broke like yours. Were you clean bowled, weren't you?
No. I had 4 balls left in the game to just get a miserable single. After 10 hours of blood, sweat and tears, I had 4 balls, and I stood there, and Arjuna Ranatunga was the bowler. He was the sort of stodgy Sri Lankan. He couldn't really bowl much. He couldn't really bowl a hoop down a hill, but he was bowling the last over. And I stood there and I thought, 300? I'm going to be the first ever. This is unbelievable. And he bowled the ball, and I never even clicked on. I never saw the ball. I just threw my hands at it, hit the edge of the bat, and this little Tilakaratne behind the stumps pulled on a beauty. So I took out a sign and I took out a fire hose, nearly took out John Wright, screaming, "This game isn't effing fair." Isn't that ridiculous? But
It's a great accomplishment, 299.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking, in terms of sportsmanship, could the Sri Lankan captain not have come over and said, "Look, okay, you're out, but let's bowl again so you can get your 300, and the bowler can get his credit as well."
Well, there's actually, there's more to this mystery, because in a recount, what did the bloke tell you?
no, well, there was footage a couple of days later of a shot I played that actually went for 6 and was signalled as 4 by Steve Woodward, the umpire, but in those days you didn't have a third umpire to go upstairs to check, so they just kind of, oh yeah, that looks like it was a 4, and it went just beyond the rope, and in fact went for 6. But I prefer 299 as opposed to 301 because Bradman, of course, was sitting there on 299 as well, so I thought perfect. In the end, once I got over myself, took a while.
But thanks again for bringing it up.
Yeah, family appreciates it.
Yeah, the family really appreciates it.
But I brought it up in the best of intentions, because I always meant to tell you
Thank
how
you.
wonderful I thought that was, and how damn tragic I thought it was as well, and what a curse it was. Do you follow each other's careers a lot?
Oh, I know what.
It was hard to avoid his.
We caught up a lot once I finished travelling and Russ started to do his movies, and in particular, I remember going to the Cannes Film Festival and watching him do Romper Stomper, which was sort of the first movie I would say that kind of got recognition, I guess. And I came out ashen. I was just blown away by this, not only the movie, but the way Russell had pulled off this particular role of Hando, this neo-Nazi in Melbourne, and then we caught up about a month later, and he was still in the role. He was still a skinhead. He was still sort of twitching and jerking his head, and anyway, we started to catch up once or twice a year.
Yeah, and then
LA.
in the middle of the 90s, we spent a bit of time together in Los Angeles as well, which it was a big transition period for Marty, because sports was now over, and a new sort of life was opening up, and for me it was a transition, because I was now in America making American films, and I had an opportunity there. So
You must have been very proud over the years in Australia to be able to say, Martin Crowe, oh yes, that's my cousin.
I just had some kookaroo chicken the other day.
Oh, God. Yes.
We had but in Los Angeles we had a very bachelor lifestyle, and but to counterbalance it, we had this skinless chicken called kookaroo that we knew we could go and get, and so that's what we ate pretty much breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
But the other things we did, I remember that trip because we went and hung out in the baseball pens that you could go and put 50 cents and just hit baseballs, and I thought, this is the game I should have played.
You should have seen him go. We're going to one of those, it's a hit batting cage thing that you put your quarters in and you get 100 balls.
And you want to go 60 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour.
Right, and so he goes in there, top speed, right, and the balls start coming out, and man, I'm in the one next to him, and at halfway I'm going, hey, ho, ho, where's that come from? And he's on top speed, and he's going, crack, crack, crack. I mean, it's like this absolute pattern of and it's echoing off the whole place, and all the people who work there are starting to sort of go, who's this? It was I got asked twice if this guy was a Major League Baseball player. Just
problem was,
what team he played for.
Of course, once you've hit the ball, you have to run around a few bases, which I couldn't do anymore. But we went to San Diego. We saw the America's Cup yacht, and they were on the verge of winning that in '95, and so those trips, and the other great trip was Malta to go and see Russell on Gladiator, and I got dressed up with my dad and my brother, and we were in the movie pool.
I know that you
They
were
were in the
movie.
senator's box.
We were very proud that you were in the movie.
Been paid for it, but
There's a lot of people waiting to be paid for being in movies.
that's my dream, is to one day when Russell's directing, is he gives me another part.
But you weren't with him in San Diego the day he was 280 pounds and bald as a badger and chatting up Renee Zellweger in a park, were you? No. This was 98.
That was
much
98,
later.
Yeah.
That's a good story.
Yeah, it's a good story.
What a great movie too.
Cool.
What's your favourite movie that you've done?
Probably Cinderella Man. I think it's a really complete and beautiful movie, and the unusual thing that happened with that is there was a common perception from people that they'd already seen the film, and the odd thing is, as they see it, as I was saying before, I have very regular conversations with people about it, how much it's the film, the experience of viewing it, affected them. But there's probably a line in terms of my work that once the movie's over that line, then the enjoyment of it or my remembrance of it's all pretty much similar. There's some movies for me that really make the grade, and other ones that we probably could have done better.
I love the fact that it was sport and there was family in that, and I think they're your two passions outside of music.
Well, to me, what I liked about that movie, it was a love story about married people. And it wasn't that there was something else, another person impacting the relationship. It was the economic, the whole, the politics of the country and the economic depression. That they were the boogeymen affecting the relationship, but the relationship didn't falter; it grew stronger. And you don't, for some reason, often see movies where the love story is between man and wife.
All Ron Howard films, and in fact all your films, are about decent people too, which is something that's also on the...
Except for Romper Stomper.
Except for Romper Stomper, which was there very early, when you had to do anything to get noticed, of course. Can I ask you this? What do you think when you read the headlines where Russell's at one of his moments, or,
I was in the kitchen with I'd gone on to see Jeff in Florida, And
299. Let's discuss that again.
now I'm going to answer this question because
Which incident are we talking about now?
the phone.
Oh, yes, the phone, yes.
Okay, because I was there when Russell's parents were there as well when they first heard the news. This was Jocelyn and Alex, because we were in Jeff's kitchen in Florida, and it was a shock, because of the enormity of the way it was being portrayed anyway. And so poor old Alex spent the next hour trying to convince us, and all he'd had was basically a quick word on the phone that Russell was very justified to do what he did. And Alex is a great storyteller. He's a great joke teller, great storyteller. So he made it into a magnificent hour of entertainment for all of us, and it sort of calmed us down. And then of course it got pretty well worse from there. And so what do I think of it?
Yeah, but look at the ultimate outcome. I go into a court in New York, and the judge says, "Sorry, you have to be here, Mr. Crowe. If it was anybody else, you could have sent a check. Do you mind paying $160 towards the cost of the court?" No? All right, thank you. I mean, how important was that? I mean, it's, the amount of news coverage and the status it was given and everything.
It must have been a dreadful day, though.
Oh, it was a terrible day.
Does it hurt
Going
you
into the courtroom because Danielle was pregnant, and there's 250 press people jumping over the top of each other. There's photographers being trampled, and there's only 3 police there because they don't want to be seen to be controlling it or taking a side or whatever. It was as my attorney said afterwards, there was massive more amount of assaulting going on outside the court and the steps of this courtroom than there ever was in the hotel.
Does it hurt you in Hollywood, that sort of stuff?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the thing is, it hurts me more directly because it hurts my family. So you learn from these situations.
I mean, I suppose one of the things about you, which people refuse to understand, or perhaps don't understand, simply don't understand, is that in order to bring that intense emotional presence to your films, you have to be the kind of person who's got the emotions pretty well accessed. Yeah?
Yeah, but I think, if when you release the long form of this interview, people will see that I'm an extremely patient person, and it takes a lot for me to react in that manner. We'd been staying in that hotel. I'm not making any excuses about it. It was a stupid thing to do, and I shouldn't have never.
If you got a shot, if you'd missed, it
well,
would have
that's
been an
for
issue.
him. This is how he puts perspective on it. He calls me up and he goes, mate, tell me, was he moving? I said, yeah, he was moving. He goes, oh, well, you would have hit him. You're always better with a moving target. But gives you a laugh and makes you sort of see things.
He's been in a great space since.
Well, of course, you're going to be seeing a lot of each other too. With the sporting matter. You got the Rabbitohs.
Well, this is a very difficult job, and we've had a few discussions about it. I mean, this is changing an entrenched culture, and moving forward one of the grandest institutions of rugby league and bringing it up to date. By no means should this be seen as something frivolous or something that's going to be easy or done quickly. But I think you see that clearly.
Yeah. Well, I've got an eye on sport all the time, but I think with the Rabbitohs, there's a special story there, and I think what we're seeing is in Peter Holmes at court and Russell, genuine passion that goes back a long way, and they feel that if they don't do something, then nothing will ever be done, and you'll see this great club go down. I think, from my point of view, Russell's going to be away a lot, so I'm kind of coming in as one of the family. I'm going to look after his interests, but more importantly, I'm going to try and get alongside Peter and a group of people and really, as Russ says, turn this thing around and get it up to speed to where the modern day rugby league club should be.
We're not really expecting that leads to a line of pennants or championships or however you want to put it. But what we're aiming at is making the team competitive.
Yeah.
Are competitive on a weekly basis, so they've got a better than even chance of winning that game. And that's got, you have structures that you can put in place for the players, but then you've actually got to address the players themselves as well, and what they put into the game.
Big battle. Big battle ahead, really.
Interesting.
You must be very proud of each other. Yes?
Well, you touched on something before that I didn't get a chance to respond to about, you know, what it was like growing up being Martin Crowe's cousin. It was fantastic, you know. I still remember with great fondness the ham sandwiches at the Cricketers Club at Eden Park, and I used to think that was just the most special thing, that I could, you know, go in there and have a ham sandwich with Marty and Jeremy Coney just because he was in the team, you know.
Who is Martin Crowe now, then?
Well, now that I've shed cricket pretty much out of my life, I've shed a lot of ego. So, you know, I'm a father, like Russ. I think that's probably the proudest thing.
I think Charlie fell for Emma last night.
Yeah, they met for the first time, Emma and Charlie, and they're, you know, they're.
You don't miss the cricket?
No, it's been a major decision and a great decision to get away from the game, as I say, to shed that ego, and now. It's sort of a bit silly, but to be normal, to be a father, to be a mate, you know, to those around me, and to go to work and not have to have an opinion, not have to be right about the sport that really has overwhelmed me for 25 years in a professional sense. Now I can think of lots of other things. I can think about the Rabbitohs, I can, you know, and feel pissed off that they've lost again, and what are we going to do? And or I can just go and spend some time with my daughter, and like Russ does with Charlie, and just think, oh, I should have done this years ago. But we've got the chance now, and we're going to make the most of it, and that's the priority.
I know Charlie fell for her because he started to immediately try to show her that he had everything under control. You know, he sort of laid out his DVDs and he talked about them. But then he said, "Daddy, apple," and I said, "No, baby, you have to wait. It's dinner time soon." He goes, "Daddy, don't let in front of the chicks." Trying to show me up. So I thought, there's something going on here, you know, because he's not usually that sort of emotional. I mean, we had just flown in or whatever. But later on, when Marty and Emma were leaving, I said, "Charlie, give Emma a kiss," and he puckered up and ran to her from about 3 yards away. Unfortunately for him, Emma's got a pretty good sidestep on her, so he didn't quite get to plant the kiss.
You're so happy in your family state of mind now. I can see that. Who's Russell Crowe now? How's Russell Crowe changed over the past 5 years?
Well, I don't know who Russell Crowe is in terms of that package that goes on and gets bandied around in the media, but who I am as a bloke. You know, I'm very focused on my family, and these are my priorities, my wife and my baby. But you know, I have seemed to have grown this quite large thing, you know, which is interesting, you know, but it has a lot of elements to it. It has, you know, the cattle, it has the farm, as we discussed, it has music, and now it's going to have this sport element. All of these things, you know, combine to probably tell you that regardless of, you know, what wisdoms I may have come up with lately, or what things my son may have shown me in terms of what's a priority, my life will always be complex. I just hope that I can fulfill his needs and the needs of all these other aspects.
What is the wonderful line on your CD from Mickey? Just give us that line.
I'd rather regret the things I've done than the things I didn't do.
It's fair enough, Mark. I know.
Oh, it's a full life. It's a big life that he's got to live. But it's a great life he's got.
I think that line, you know, pertains to everybody. It's a very simple thing, you know. The one thing that you don't want to be doing at the end of your days is, you know, having more time to regret rather than more time to tell stories about the things that you accomplished, you know, or the things that you thought you might be able to have a go at, you know.
Thank you to Russell Crowe and to Martin for their patience and their generosity of comment. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night.